March 8th, 2026. 3i Atlas just opened, and what's inside changes everything. 96 minutes ago, something happened that no one predicted. March 8th, 2026. 9:34 UTC. Multiple observatories detected a massive structural change in 3i Atlas. Not a panel opening, not a deployment event. The entire object opened. 16 panels we've been tracking. Every single one dilated simultaneously. The octahedral structure unfolded. What we thought was the hull was actually an external shell. And beneath that shell, we can now see deep inside into the core, into regions shielded for 3 months by 200 meters of structure. And what's visible now? What 17 telescopes are imaging in real time changes everything we thought we knew about what Atlas is and why it came here. When a spacecraft opens its hull, you learn what it was designed to carry. But when that spacecraft is 11.7 kilometers across, has been hiding its interior for 3 months, and opens itself completely 48 hours before closest approach, you're looking at something much more significant. This isn't a malfunction. This wasn't structural failure. Atlas didn't make a mistake. It decided to show us what's inside. And what's inside is far from what we'd expect. It's not empty cargo bays, not just a reactor core, not equipment we'd recognize as machinery. No, what's inside is a city. Before we dive into the Hubble imagery that captured the opening sequence in unprecedented detail, and before I explain why the internal architecture proves that Atlas is a multi-generational colony ship designed for permanent residence, not a temporary visit, I need to take a moment and help you understand something crucial. When we talk about city in the context of interstellar spacecraft, it's different from anything we've seen before. Earth's largest ships carry hundreds of people, and space stations hold dozens. But Atlas, based on internal volume calculations and the visuals we can now see directly, has infrastructure for thousands. Residential blocks, agricultural sectors, industrial zones, all visible through open panels. These are not abandoned spaces. They are clearly designed, clearly populated, and clearly active. Let me ask you this. If a spacecraft has been closed for 3 months and suddenly opens completely to reveal city-scale infrastructure with distinct zones for living, working, and food production, what's the simpler explanation? Could it be coincidental structural design that mimics urban planning, or is it exactly what it appears to be, a civilization in transit? A mobile colony, a self-sufficient society that's traveled 500 years across the stars and is now showing us they're not leaving because colonies don't visit, they settle. To fully understand this, we have to look at the opening sequence. The timing here is crucial and reveals intent. March 8th, 2026, 9:34 UTC. The first motion is detected. Panel 1 on phase alpha begins to dilate. Just 32 seconds later, panels 2 through 16 begin dilating in a synchronized sequence. Not all at once, staggered by precisely 2.3 seconds between each panel. Every panel opening is coordinated, controlled, choreographed. By 9 hours, 42 minutes and 51 seconds UTC, just 8 minutes and 34 seconds after the initial movement, all 16 panels are fully open, each one 380 meters across, and what they reveal is something astonishing. An internal structure that had been completely shielded until now. Now, let's take a closer look at what we see in the imagery from Hubble, Webb, and ground-based observatories. The resolution varies depending on the source, but a convergent picture is emerging. What we now know is that the interior isn't just one vast, open chamber. It's compartmentalized. It's layered and structured into distinct zones, which we can observe through spectroscopic analysis and direct imaging. The outermost layer of the structure houses agricultural zones. How do we know this? Well, we can see chlorophyll fluorescent signatures, indicators of active photosynthesis. Plants are growing inside the spacecraft. These zones appear as elongated chambers running parallel to the curvature of the hull. Each chamber is roughly 200 meters wide, 800 meters long, and 50 meters tall. There are at least 23 such chambers visible through the open panels, with green fluorescence indicating active farming. Now, let's think about that for a moment. These are farming chambers, not just storage. They're growing food, likely for a crew of significant size. A large-scale, self-sustaining system designed to support life on board. They've been farming inside the spacecraft for months, possibly longer. This is a society that can produce its own food in space. We're looking at a civilization that doesn't rely on external resources. It generates everything it needs internally. As we move deeper into the structure, we come to the intermediate layer, where we find residential and communal spaces. Thermal imaging shows that these regions are at temperatures ranging from 295 to 300 Kelvin, comfortable human equivalent temperatures. The structural features here suggest compartmentalization into smaller units, grid patterns, corridors, and what looks like individual habitation modules. Essentially, urban planning at a depth of 1 kilometer from the hull. Infrared signatures reveal where heat sources match occupied spaces, indicating these areas are actively inhabited. Now here's where it gets even more fascinating. Deeper still, we reach the industrial and systems infrastructure. This layer is considerably hotter, with thermal signatures ranging from 450 to 600 Kelvin. Too hot for habitation but carefully controlled. This is where manufacturing and fabrication occur. These zones are likely where the 347 objects in the surrounding shells were constructed. It's where the anti-tail materials were synthesized and the spray chemicals were formulated, basically the industrial base supporting the colony. At the core region, we find the reactor zone, the hottest part of the spacecraft. This area is now visible due to recent expansion from 2.4 kilometers to 3.7 kilometers. The reactor is visible through multiple open panels, providing a direct line of sight to the outer containment. What we see here is a layered structure, concentric shells, distributing heat in a way that maps to power generation and distribution infrastructure. This isn't just the power plant for the colony, it's designed to operate for centuries. This is a long-term solution, capable of supporting life indefinitely. With all this in mind, we can begin estimating the population capacity of this spacecraft. The agricultural capacity seems to be the constraining factor. There are 23 visible farming chambers, each with a volume of about 1.84 million cubic meters. Using vertical farming efficiency similar to what's been proposed for Mars colonies, this could support anywhere from 2,000 to 5,000 individuals, depending on dietary needs and crop yields. But remember, we're only seeing a fraction of the interior through these open panels. The 18 square kilometers exposed is just a small part of the overall internal volume. If the agricultural zones cover just 10% of the intermediate layer, and we're seeing about 15% of that area through the panels, we can extrapolate. The total population capacity could range anywhere from 15,000 to 25,000 individuals. That's not a small crew. That's a society, a civilization. The oxygen consumption calculations support these estimates. Initially, we had estimated that the crew consisted of between 300 to 1,500 active individuals, based on atmospheric modifications and biosignature production. But that was a conservative estimate, assuming minimal infrastructure. Now that we can see the city-scale architecture, we believe the upper end or even beyond could be possible. If there are between 3,000 to 5,000 individuals actively managing systems, producing food, and maintaining infrastructure, it aligns with the oxygen consumption data and the visible agricultural capacity we see through the open panels. We're no longer talking about a crew of explorers or a small team. We're talking about a self-sustaining society, a full-fledged civilization living on this spacecraft with everything they need to survive and thrive for generations. Now, let's discuss what this means for the mission architecture. A multi-generational colony ship requires specific infrastructure. You need food production, you need living space, you need industrial capacity to maintain and repair systems over centuries. You need power generation robust enough for indefinite operation. Waste recycling, social structures. Atlas has all of this, and it's all clearly visible and operational. The original crew that launched from the HD 30,651 system 500 years ago is long dead. Long dead. The current crew aboard Atlas is descendants of those first explorers. Depending on their lifespans, they could be the 5th, 10th, or even 15th generation of inhabitants. They were born aboard Atlas. They grew up aboard Atlas. To them, Atlas is home. It's not Earth, and it's certainly not the HD 30,651 system where they originated from. For them, Atlas is their home, a mobile home, a traveling civilization. They're not explorers or settlers, they've always been aboard this ship. This is their world. But what does it mean strategically that Atlas opened now? For 3 months, Atlas maintained a closed configuration with its hull sealed and its interior hidden. Then, just 48 hours before closest approach at 1,247 kilometers, Atlas opens completely. This is not random. It's a deliberate strategic move. This isn't just about revealing the interior for the sake of transparency. This is communication. Atlas is showing us who they are. They're showing us that they are not just technology, they are society. They are civilization, they are people. But it's also a demonstration. Look at our infrastructure, look at our capacity. We are self-sufficient. We don't need your planet's resources. We have our own food, water, power, and industry. We're not refugees, we're not conquerors seeking to take what you have. We are visitors, and we have the capability to stay indefinitely on our own terms. Opening the panels reduces the spacecraft's structural mass. It also improves heat dissipation and provides direct access to internal systems for operations that may require external interaction. If the next phase of the mission involves rapid deployment of assets from deep storage, the open configuration makes it possible. This could be the final preparation before the primary mission objective is executed. Let's talk about the timing of this opening. Atlas opened exactly 48 hours before closest approach. This was not a coincidence. It was calculated at a precise 1,247 kilometers altitude during perigee. Earth-based optical telescopes will have a resolution better than 10 meters per pixel. Opening now ensures we have 2 full days to observe, analyze, and understand what we're seeing. Atlas wants us to see. They want us to understand. This opening is a gesture. It's an invitation to observe, to study, and to process everything they're showing us. They've given us 2 full days to understand what's inside before the closest approach happens. Why 48 hours specifically? Because humans need time to respond. We need time to assess, time to decide. The opening reveals non-threatening infrastructure, agricultural zones, residential spaces, and industrial capacity, all suggesting a self-sufficient society, not an invasion force. 2 days is enough time for world governments to analyze and conclude that Atlas is not hostile. They're showing us they are not a threat. It's a diplomatic calculation. It's first contact protocol. The idea is to show capability without posing a threat. Demonstrate technology while revealing a humanity-equivalent society. Give the world time to assess, time to process, before the critical moment arrives. This is sophisticated, this is planned, this is first contact executed by a civilization that's thought through every detail. Atlas didn't open because of a malfunction. They didn't open out of desperation. They opened to show us who they are. They opened to show us they are self-sufficient and they are here on their terms. This isn't a ship passing through. This is a mobile city. This is civilization in transit. And this is just the beginning. In the coming hours, we will continue to learn more. What we've seen so far is just a glimpse of the vast infrastructure within Atlas, but there's still so much to uncover. As we observe the next phase of the mission, we'll see how Atlas's occupants interact with their environment, how their society functions, and how they continue their journey through the stars. Now, let's discuss what xenoarchitecture analysis reveals about the design of the spacecraft. Human spacecraft typically follow engineering principles based on our physics, materials, and culture. We use cylindrical pressure vessels, modular construction, and separate compartments for different functions. But Atlas, it shows similar principles, but on a different scale, and with a distinctly different aesthetic. For example, the agricultural chambers aren't cylindrical tubes like we would design. They're curved to follow the curvature of the hull, optimized for volume while maintaining structural integrity. This approach shows that the builders of Atlas prioritized maximizing space and efficiency. These aren't just rooms, they are carefully planned environments designed to support life on a long-term scale. In the residential zones, we see grid patterns, but with geometric elements that we don't typically use. There's a focus on hexagonal close packing efficiency in some regions and radial arrangements in others. These arrangements suggest a different cultural approach to space utilization, one that focuses on optimal efficiency while maintaining structural integrity and comfort. The pattern of living spaces reflects values that might be very different from our own, but are just as functional and effective for their inhabitants. The manufacturing zones show thermal signatures that are consistent with high-temperature processes, but the distribution patterns suggest a different workflow organization than what we see in human factories. Instead of a linear assembly line, Atlas appears to favor distributed parallel processing, indicating a different approach to industrial production. This suggests that the builders of Atlas have developed methods of production that are far more decentralized, perhaps reflecting a cultural value of redundancy over efficiency. Even the reactor system is unique. Our reactors tend to be dense, compact, and heavily shielded with a single core. Atlas's reactor, on the other hand, is built with distributed, layered shells. Power generation is spread across the volume of the reactor rather than concentrated at a single point. This is a key difference in how they approach risk management. They seem to value redundancy and distributed systems over the more centralized, risk-prone methods we use. These are engineering choices that reflect an entirely different culture, a different approach to science, evolution, and, importantly, risk. This is what we're seeing: alien engineering that solves the same problems we do, but with solutions shaped by different histories, materials, and cultural priorities. This is what we call xenoarchaeology, studying alien civilizations through their material culture, which in this case is the internal architecture of their spacecraft. And from this study, we're learning their values: long-term thinking, redundancy, distributed systems, and community-oriented infrastructure. These values might seem foreign to us, but they work. This society has survived for centuries, and their methods have clearly allowed them to thrive. Let's now talk about what happens next. With all the panels now open, we can conduct continuous observation. We can track activities within the visible chambers. We'll be able to monitor heat signatures as different areas activate or rest. This will allow us to observe the way they use their internal spaces. We'll be able to see activity patterns in real time, potentially confirming how this society functions. Spectroscopic analysis of the interior atmospheres is now possible, and this could give us a deeper understanding of their technology, their life support systems, and even their biological makeup. One of the most exciting aspects of this observation will be the possibility of detecting movement. Right now, at a distance of 385,000 kilometers, even Hubble can't resolve individual people. However, as we get closer, we might be able to observe vehicles moving between chambers, groups of individuals clustered in communal spaces, or activity patterns that suggest coordinated work. This could be the first visual confirmation we have that Atlas is not only inhabited but is also alive with civilization. In just 12 hours, we'll have a more complete map of the interior. Every visible chamber will be cataloged, every heat source identified, and we'll have a detailed understanding of what's happening inside. Within 24 hours, we might detect movement. If crew members move visibly through the open sections during Earth-facing periods, we'll capture it. This could be the first visual evidence of individual beings from another star. By 36 hours, we could see an international response forming. Once world leaders realize that Atlas is carrying a society, not just technology, diplomatic protocols will kick in. The question will no longer be about whether Atlas poses a threat, but rather how we communicate with a society of this scale. This is the moment when everything changes. We've gone from wondering what this object is to realizing we're in contact with an entire civilization. A civilization that has been traveling across the stars for 500 years, now arriving at our doorstep. At 48 hours, during closest approach, the panels might close again. The initial reveal could be a demonstration of openness and transparency, but once they're close enough for operational security reasons, they might shut again. Or the panels might remain open, continuing their gesture of transparency. This is a critical moment. If Atlas remains in Earth orbit, it might keep its configuration open permanently. This could be their way of saying, "This is us. This is how we are. We're staying. Get used to seeing us." The moment of closest approach is rapidly approaching, and as we get closer, the implications of Atlas's openness become even clearer. What we've learned so far is nothing short of extraordinary. Atlas has revealed itself to be much more than just a spacecraft. It's a mobile city, a traveling civilization that has crossed hundreds of light years to reach us. In the last 48 hours, we've gained unprecedented insights into how this society functions and what its long-term goals might be. What's truly remarkable is how strategic this entire sequence has been. The timing of the opening, exactly 48 hours before closest approach, wasn't random. It was carefully planned. Atlas made a conscious decision to give us time to process what we were seeing, to understand that we are not dealing with a hostile force, but rather with a society that has the capability to stay on its own terms. It wasn't about showing off advanced technology or asserting power. It was about offering us a chance to comprehend who they are and why they're here. We've already observed a wide range of details from the exposed sections: agricultural zones where food is grown, residential spaces clearly designed for long-term habitation, industrial areas built to support sustained manufacturing, and the heart of the spacecraft, the reactor producing the power needed to keep the whole system running. These are not mere temporary setups. These are structures designed for life to persist, not just for a few years or decades, but for centuries. As we continue to monitor Atlas's interior, we might see more movement. The closer we get, the better the resolution. And with that improved resolution, we could see even more. Individual crew members, vehicles moving between chambers, and perhaps even signs of social interaction within the community. What we're witnessing is an entirely new form of life, an offshoot of humanity, perhaps, or a civilization so different that it challenges everything we thought we knew about life in the universe. In the coming hours, we'll likely see a shift in how governments around the world react. The first wave of shock and disbelief will give way to analysis and understanding. Leaders will have to decide how to respond to the reality that we're not just observing a probe from another star system. We are looking at an entire society, one that has traveled across vast distances, carrying with it its own culture, technology, and most importantly, its own history. This is no longer a question of what Atlas is, it's a question of what we, as humanity, do next. This is a moment of history. The discovery of Atlas has fundamentally changed the course of human knowledge. What we're witnessing is the first contact with an extraterrestrial civilization, and it's not coming in the form of an invasion or a conquest. It's coming as an invitation to join a larger galactic community. Atlas has opened its doors not just to show us its technology, but to demonstrate that it is a society, a living, breathing civilization that has chosen to reveal itself to us. As we move forward, there are many questions to be answered. How do we communicate with a civilization so different from our own? What will their presence mean for us? What can we learn from their technology and culture? These are questions that we will explore in the coming days and months. But for now, we are left with one undeniable truth. Atlas is not a ship, it is a city. And it has just opened its gates to show us who they are. The next 48 hours will be crucial. As Atlas makes its closest approach, we will have the chance to learn even more, to witness history in the making. But as we prepare for that moment, one thing is certain: the world will never be the same again. Atlas has shown us that the universe is far more complex and far more connected than we ever imagined. And as we stand on the brink of this unprecedented encounter, we must decide how humanity will respond to this new chapter in the story of our species. This is a defining moment, the first step toward understanding a civilization from another star system, a moment that will shape the future of humanity and our place in the cosmos. If you've been captivated by the mysteries of Atlas and the implications of its reveal, make sure to subscribe to stay updated with the latest developments. This is just the beginning, and you won't want to miss what happens next. Share your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think Atlas's arrival means for humanity? Are we prepared to meet this civilization on their terms? Let's keep the conversation going, and together we can explore the future of interstellar contact.